Do you have that one friend who seems to know an insufferable amount about a lot of random subjects? The person who chimes in with the odd and sometimes highly disturbing fun fact. Well, my name is Carly, and I am that friend. I often find myself wondering about topics that range from the history of certain holidays to what makes some wines expensive and some a little on the cheaper side. So I make use of that mini supercomputer I carry everywhere and just look it up. Lately, I have decided to share the random knowledge that I acquire with all of you lovely listeners. So welcome to I'm Already Looking It Up. Let's have a drink and learn a thing or two. Hello. You're listening to I'm Already Looking It Up, the podcast where I, your host, research a random topic and tell you, my lovely listeners, all about it. So without further ado, let's get started. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about some fun little mysteries. This topic idea actually also came from my husband, so shout out to him. He has had this book for, so it's an interesting story. So this book that my husband had, he actually told me his grandmother had when he was a kid, and it's called Unsolved Mysteries, I believe, and it's just this big book full of, like, random, kind of an encyclopedia type thing, full of random, just, like, little mysteries and stuff that it talks about. He used to tell me when we first moved in together that he loved this book, and then there was one story in the book in particular that he really liked, about a disappearing wrecking ball, which is going to be the first story that we're going to talk about. Me being me, I immediately went on to this website called Thrift Books, shout out to Thrift Books, and found the book he was talking about and ordered it because it was super cheap, and so now we own the Unsolved Mysteries book. We've had it for a very long time, since before we were married, because we got it when we first moved out of our parents' house. So it's pretty, it's a pretty interesting little book. But I decided I wanted to cover the disappearing wrecking ball, and maybe some other fun little mysteries in that book. Well, I went to go look up the story of the disappearing wrecking ball in the book and found that it was super, super short. And I was like, well, that's not going to cover, not even like 30 minutes. So I went to go look and see, I guess it wouldn't have covered 30 minutes, but it definitely wouldn't have covered like not even 10 or 5, super short. So I went to go look and see if there were any updates to this story, had anybody found the wrecking ball, if there were any answers, and what I did find was a website called Anomalies, which had other mysteries, a bunch more, and specifically had the disappearing wrecking ball mystery word for word out of this book, and then talked about what actually happened and what the update was. So I was really excited, and I've copied and pasted. I have the articles from this website, and then I went searching through this website to find some more really interesting, maybe like mysteries that are like solved but not really, or that kind of have an answer but we still don't like firmly know. So yeah, this is the topic for today. I just thought it would be fun to share because I like stories like this, and I think they are interesting and kind of shows that in our world that there are just some things that are never going to be answered, and we just kind of got to deal with it. So here we go. Like I said, we're going to start with the story of the disappearing wrecking ball. 1973, July 17th, a strange theft. On Tuesday morning, July 17th, 1973, workers with the Dowling Construction Company returned to work at a demolition site in Indianapolis, Indiana, USA, to discover something very inconvenient. Their 5-ton wrecking ball was missing. In short, a release from the Associated Press on the day after, July 18th, it was explained that the ball had been hanging from a crane around 200 feet from the ground and had been seen on Monday at 5 p.m. when workers left for the day, so it had vanished sometime during the night. Ignoring the difficulty of removing the ball without having been detected, Lauren Dowling of the Dowling Construction Company was quoted saying, "I can't figure out what someone would do with a 5-ton metal wrecking ball." According to Reader's Digest's 1982 book, Mysteries of the Unexplained, that's what it is, Mysteries of the Unexplained, the ball never turned up and the police were baffled by the whole situation. A few mistakes came later, so there is an update to this case. And from what I read, I basically skimmed this just to make sure it made sense. And then I still am kind of trying to do cold reads on some things, just because they're fun to react to. But basically from what I can glean from this is there was some misreporting that happened, and that is why they never figured out where the wrecking ball went or why it was such a strange mystery. So, here we go. A few mistakes came later. It was such a simple yet elegant mystery, the removal of an object so hideously big and awkward that it should not have been possible to do so without becoming alert. It is indeed impressive, and its presence in the Mysteries of the Unexplained implied possibly paranormal. Some confusion has occurred with this particular event, specifically due to Mysteries of the Unexplained. Apparently, there was a whole set printing of the 1982 book that reported that the size of the missing wrecking ball was 2.5 tons rather than 5 tons. So depending on what copy of the book you had, the weight could have been reported as either of those. I'm not sure why or how this happened, but I've seen enough people discuss this matter and their confusion to know that the book did indeed report both of those weights in different editions. The correct weight, going by the earlier newspaper accounts, is 5 tons. Mysteries of the Universe also misreported the date of the event as just 1974, which a lot of other books then started repeating. But this is an error on the part of the Mysteries of the Unexplained. Again, the original newspapers established the correct date as being July 17th, 1973. And one more thing about the Mysteries of the Unexplained listing about the mystery. The authors choose to illustrate their short paragraph on this mystery with the following painting. La Reconnaissance Infinie by René Magritte, 1933. And then they show a picture of the painting, to which authors added the caption, "Could anyone have stolen a 5-ton steel ball, or did it simply float away?" René Magritte's 1953 painting, The Infinite Search, suggests the mystery of such an event. Just for the record, the painting was created around 1933, not 1953, and the title, La Reconnaissance Infinie, translates to the infinite recognition, so the details here are as off as the year given for when it even happened. While the painting is an intriguing painting, it has the rather unfortunate effect of implying that it displays what size the missing wrecking ball would be, and that implied size is huge, which definitely helps with implying a paranormal aspect to the wrecking ball's disappearance down to Earth. So, just how big would a 5-ton wrecking ball be? Well, then they show a picture of what a 4-ton wrecking ball would be, and it's really not much bigger than, I really should have, on my Patreon or on my blog, I should probably put pictures with these, but it's really not much, it's smaller than a car, than, a regular car. And it's showing this 4-ton one just, hitting the side of a car, and destroying it, so it's, it's really not that big. And you also have to remember that, weight relative to size is not always, you say something is 5 tons, but that doesn't always mean it's huge. I mean, it's made of metal, so of course it's giant, or of course it, weighs 5 tons. So it's it makes sense that this isn't even that big. So, in the earliest release of the Associated Press article, as it appeared in the Eunice Evening Press, it's reported that the police suspected a low truck, likely a mistype of a tow truck, might have been used to steal the ball. This detail is not repeated by any other newspapers that picked up the AP article. Given how large the ball actually was, this is not an unreasonable thought. Excuse me. And it sure beats being baffled, as the police were described by mysteries of the unexplained. This same article, by the way, states that the construction company was engaged in the demolition of the former boys' club, and that the ball was left hanging only 20 feet above the ground, which makes sense. At 200 feet up, as reported by most newspapers that picked up the Associated Press release, the ball would have been suspended at the height of a 20-story building. That would be both a remarkable large crane and greater difficulty for the thieves to steal the ball discreetly. A former boys' club, however, would not likely be a 20-story building, so it makes sense that the ball would be much closer to the ground, adding to the plausibility of someone placing it on a truck without being caught. And now for something just strange. The Associated Press article was largely based on an article printed in the Indianapolis Star on July 18th, 1973, and this earliest article and the AP release both agree on one key detail, that Lauren Dowling, whose name appears to be an owner of the interested party in the Dowling Construction Company, was quoted as saying, "I can't figure out what someone would do with a 5-ton metal ball." This quote is literally why we know it was a 5-ton ball that was stolen, which makes the next thing I found odd. On July 19th, the Indianapolis Star printed another shorter article about the strange theft, and this article was not picked up by the Associated Press, so was never seen anywhere else. Here's what it said. Fumbled the ball. A police report was in error Tuesday when it said a wrecking ball missing from the Dowling Construction Company, or missing from the demolition site of the 1949 East Troy Avenue, weighed 5 tons. A spokesman from the Dowling Construction Company said the ball weighed only 50 pounds. A 50-pound ball would be really easy to steal compared to the larger size. But Lauren Dowling was very distinct about a 5-ton ball going missing. The only thing I can guess at here is that maybe Dowling had claimed the missing ball was larger so that he and the company could make a larger insurance claim. Or that the second report is just wrong. I doubt I'll ever have a distinct answer one way or the other, so there's that. So there you go. That's the disappearing wrecking ball. An interesting mystery. I don't think they know yet, or will ever know, who actually took it and why. But the theft isn't as strange and paranormal as people think it is. It's definitely a lot more feasible than what was kind of portrayed. And I can understand because, like I said, my husband knew this story from when he was a kid and had read it in this book and thought it was just like the craziest thing. And then I explained to him what I had found about it before recording this, and he was like, "Oh, yeah." Which I felt bad about because I was like, "Oh, I hope I didn't like shatter like your childlike wonder with that." But so many things have been ruined for me as an adult. Like I used to, like, the Bermuda Triangle being like this big mysterious thing is not even a real thing. A lot of things have gotten misreported, or they'd say, "Oh, like, the ship disappeared," but then it would be that they actually did find it. It just never like came up afterwards that they did find the people and everything. So, kind of a crazy little one of those, like, it's a mystery why they stole the ball and why, and how they did it, but it's not really, like, that unreasonable for whoever to have done this, to have done it. So, kind of cool. This next one I picked mainly for the title, and then I read it, and I was like, this is kind of fun. It's a mystery that's already been solved, so I'll tell you that, but it is interesting because I could see how this would be kind of terrifying, and it's also relatively recent, so I think it's a pretty interesting story. The Dolls of Orange County. I also like creepy stories with dolls, so it's great. On July 24th, 2015, news of a quiet panic in a gated community leaked out to the news services from Orange County in Los Angeles, California, in the United States. Dolls were being found on family doorsteps, old porcelain dolls, and only at households with daughters within the range of 10 years old. Several of the parents also noticed that the dolls left them had the same eye and hair color as their daughters. Pretty creepy. The implications that an unknown person was both watching their daughters and penetrating the privacy of the gated neighborhood was taken as an immediate threat by most of the families, and the Orange County Sheriff's Department was soon involved in the investigation. More dolls appeared after the police got involved, bringing the total number found up to 10, left on the doorsteps of 8 families. Soon, Facebook posts were spreading the news of the appearance of the creepy dolls. The police issued a public statement on the matter. Sheriff's investigators are actually reviewing and following up on information provided by each families involved. The porcelain dolls have all been collected as evidence and are being examined in an attempt to identify their origin or discover the clues as to who may be responsible for leaving them. Investigators are working with community members and impacted families in an attempt to locate any possible connection between the homes and where the dolls were left. So here's what really happened. When investigators gathered the families together to discuss the mysterious dolls, they discovered that all of the families attended the same church, and through social media realized that the likely culprit was a woman from their congregation who was trying to get rid of her collection of dolls. The police contacted her, and she confirmed that she had been leaving the dolls as gifts for the families. She'd also tried to match up the dolls with the children they resembled by way of their hair and eye color, explaining why a resemblance was noted by some of the families, not new families. She had intended the dolls as gifts for the families, a gesture of goodwill, but apparently hadn't realized how paranoid average families are in a gated community tends to be. So, I thought that one was just fun, because I was like, leave a note, at the very least. Like, if someone, if you're gonna go around leaving gifts for little kids on parents' doorsteps, leave a note being like, this is from blah, blah, blah. I don't know, maybe she wanted to make it seem like they had magically appeared or something, but, yeah, I read that, and I was like, man, if she just left, like, a little note or something, it probably would have been fine, but, so I'm trying to think how many I put in here. Oh, I only have one more. Okay, so this is going to be kind of a short episode, but I actually thought some of these stories were really fun, so I only put this last one in here. 1877, who is the Mutter Museum Giant? And I'm going to take a sip of my coffee first. All right. Who is the Mutter Museum Giant? The Mutter Museum of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, established in 1858 through a generous donation of items and money by Thomas Dent Mutter, possessing an astounding assortment of bits of people and medical equipment. The collection was originally meant to be used as teaching devices for surgical students, hence its unusual nature. Since its establishment, the museum has opened its doors to the public so that those interested parties with strong stomachs could peruse the various bones, preserved organs and creatures, and antique medical equipment. It's an interesting visit, I assure you. Definitely one for my bucket list, because medical history is super fascinating, because we learned so much, and most of those advancements have unfortunately come through wartime, but it's also really interesting to go back and see what people believed would heal them and would fix things, because it's crazy. Like, one of my favorite facts is, and I'm sure it's something most people know, but originally the chainsaw was invented as a medical device to help with C-sections. And that's so terrifying. Makes me glad that I don't really plan on having kids by way of birthing them. I might adopt, I don't know, sometime in the future, but I definitely am not. I'm probably not going to have actual kids. But that's terrifying. C-sections in themselves are terrifying. If you've ever watched House of the Dragon, there is a C-section scene portrayed in probably like the first, I want to say 2 or 3 episodes. I can't exactly remember, but I remember watching that, and I watched that show with my husband and being like, oh my god, I did not know like how crazy C-sections were. I mean, and this is portrayed in the medieval era, so obviously like C-sections are a lot more common now, but it was pretty brutal and still is kind of a brutal procedure to go through, because they do like split you open pretty much, and not for it. So definitely something on the bucket list though, because I think that stuff is fascinating. Anyway, undoubtedly one of the most spectacular items in the largest human skeleton is the largest human skeleton on display in North America, nicknamed the American Giant, or sometimes the Kentucky Giant after the state it was acquired from. The skeleton measures an impressive 7 feet 6 inches in height and is displayed alongside a normal height individual skeleton, as well as the skeleton of a dwarf named Mary Ashbury. What a name. But the most remarkable thing about the skeleton of the American Giant is not its size. The most remarkable thing about it is how the museum came to own it, and the fact its original user is still unknown. Sorry. That, wouldn't make sense. So yeah, the person who is the American Giant no one actually knows is the mystery, I guess I should say. The story as it was told in 1898 is that in the year of 1877, the body of a giant was offered up for sale in Kentucky. It was an unusual situation that greatly interested Professor Joseph Leidy, associated with the Mutter Museum at the time, when he was informed of it by Professor A.E. Foote. There was one rather large stipulation on the sale, however. No question could be asked that might lead to the identification of the body. Despite this rather dubious requirement, arrangements were made to purchase the body, and it was reduced to skeleton and mounted for display, and there appears to have been no effort made by any of the gentlemen involved in this deal to ever identify whose body exactly they had purchased. Though this may all sound a bit morally shady, there was already a long history of medical men resorting to questionable ways to obtain unusual specimens that could not be retrieved otherwise, which generally means that the family said no when asked. Surprising, though, as it may sound, 100 plus years later, and still no one knows who the Mutter Giant was. Which is saying something when you consider how few people were over 7 feet 6 inches tall in the 1870s. So, pretty interesting. What they do know is most of what is known of the giant skeleton, including how the museum came to possess it, was published in an 1898 article as part of an article by Guy Hinsdale. The article mainly explored the relatively recent discovery of the connection between the pituitary gland and gigantism? Yeah. In humans. I wanted to say giganticism, but that's not what it says. In humans. With a comparison of the known features of various giant skeletons to catalog visible physical effects and could be associated with the newly discovered disorder. Clearly, through a secondary reason was so that the known facts of the American Giant could be shared with others in the medical community interested in giants, perhaps with the hope that some correspondent would know who the skeleton was in life. As far as I know, no one ever contacted Hinsdale or the magazine with further information on the skeleton's identity. Hinsdale stated his belief that the owner of the skeleton was around 22 or 24 years old at death. The bones had appeared to have reached their full development, though Hinsdale also stated that the epiphyseal junctions were still plainly visible, and since these junctions are where the bone grows and are not clearly visible in adults, it's possible that the American giant would have grown more had he lived longer. The placard now on display with the skeleton in the museum identifies the gender as male. The skeleton measured 7 feet 6 inches at the time of Hinsdale's examination, but showed signs that the individual was developing acromegaly, excessive growth of hands, feet, and facial features. The skeleton has a pronounced curvature of the spine, and the rib cage extends far forward than it does side to side, both very unusual features. And Hinsdale was fairly sure that the giant was taller than 7 feet 6 inches in life previous to the curvature of the spine. The placard currently displayed with the skeleton also adds that in radiographic study of the bones, it shows very little evidence of biochemical forces, which means the individual had likely spent some time bedridden previous to death. Current investigations, modernly a core group of giant enthusiasts, are trying to identify the American giant's original identity, and the forum discussions of the website The Tallest Man, and they provide a link. There is no clear candidates without a number of assumptions made for each, but given that the body was sold on a no questions asked basis, theories that include body snatching and overseas theft start sounding entirely possible as explanations for why no questions were wanted. By the end of a long discussion and examination of evidence, the forum organizers settled on 3 favorite suspects. Alright, so we have James Toller, which is an apt name for a possible giant. 1795 to 1818, aka the Innsbury giant, died age 23, was about 8 feet and 1.5 inches tall, lived in Huntington, England, and was said to have been buried under the floorboards of a church. This church underwent renovation in the 1870s, so the theory that his skeleton was stolen during the renovation and spirited overseas to be sold, which would be a good reason to tell buyers not to ask questions. John M. Basker, our second candidate, 1836 to, they don't know when he died, presumably around 1861, of Caldwell County, Kentucky, USA. The actual year of his death is unknown, but the last known newspaper record about him was printed in 1861. He was 7 feet 8 inches tall in his boots and relatively slim for his size, only weighed 240 pounds. Baker may have died around the assumed age of the American giant, 22 to 24 years old, and that is about what Baker's age was when he was last mentioned in print. If he died in 1861, then he may have been exhumed and sold in 1877, which could be body snatching, which would be a good reason to tell buyers, no questions asked. The very last one, I was kind of sad because they debunked this one pretty quickly, but I think it's kind of a cool connection to things that I like in general. So, Roy, the legendary giant inmate of the East Bethany, Genesee County Poorhouse in New York State, USA, now known as the Rolling Hills Asylum. Of the 3 above, we can rule out Roy for the time being. though I was able to determine that a Roy Krause, which is said to be the full name of the suspected giant, was indeed a resident of the asylum, there is no actual proof yet that he was a giant in life. More importantly for the discussion, however, if Krause was the correct Roy from the Rolling Hills Asylum, the fact that he was born in 1890 and died in 1942 means that he was born too late to be the Mutter Museum's giant. So, probably not Roy, but they do mention Roy in, I think it's either in BuzzFeed Unsolved or it's in Watcher. I'm pretty sure it's Watcher, where Shane Madej and Ryan Bagara, I almost forgot his last name, sorry, Ryan, you don't listen to this, they actually went to Rolling Hills Asylum as a ghost investigation, and Roy was in fact mentioned. I remember the story kind of that the lady told about him. The caretaker basically told them that, like, when she first bought the asylum or first started taking care of the asylum or whatever, she was kind of going through it with, I believe, like an inspector, and they were in kind of the area where Roy is known to be seen as a ghost, and they saw like a rat or something, and, you know, freaked out because rats are gross, and I'm just kidding. Rats are cool, but, like, also gross. But rats are gross, and she freaked out, like, and they left the room, and then, like, a moment later, they heard something and went to investigate, and the rat was, like, dead, and there were blood splatters, and they found, like, a handprint, so kind of a cool, like, little connection when I read that, because I was like, oh, man, that's the ghost that they mentioned on Watcher. So that's pretty cool. So, of course, it's always possible that the American giant is completely unknown, who lived quietly somewhere and was only exposed after his death by some profiteer. And until a definitive answer can be discovered, there will always be people out there trying to find the true identity of the tallest skeleton displayed in North America. So, there you go. Those are the 3 little mysteries I found to talk about for today's episode. Like I said, I just really love stuff like this, because it's like, it's not solved, but it's, like, also not unreasonable. Like, I mean, the doll thing is completely solved, obviously, but it's still kind of like a creepy little, like, someone just leaving dolls on doorsteps, and some of the dolls happen to, like, look similar to the little girl who lives there, and that's really, like, kind of a cool, I would watch that movie. I would watch that as a scary movie, because that would be interesting, because dolls, I love scary dolls. Scary dolls are creepy, and usually they're portrayed as porcelain dolls. The only, like, I've actually never seen any of, like, the Conjuring universe series or whatever, but, mostly because I just don't think they look very interesting, and I also know that they're all based kind of around, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are very debunked ghost hunters, and I wish not to give them any more, or any of my money, even though I think both of them are dead, or one of them is dead. Actually, I'm gonna look this up, because I'm pretty sure Ed is dead. Ed and Lorraine Warren. Let's see. Yeah, so Ed passed away in 2006, and Lorraine passed away in 2019. So yeah, they're both not alive anymore. But anyway, yeah, I don't want to give their estate, I guess, any profit. I don't know. But anyway, I've never watched Annabelle. I'm sure it's creepy, but I just, like, I can't, knowing, like, kind of the story behind it, and the fact that, like, the story is probably most likely a huge hoax, it's kind of hard to get into it at that point. So, but I love the idea of a creepy doll story. I think that is so cool. I was huge into porcelain dolls when I was younger, and I used to have a bunch of them. I actually don't know what happened to most of them, but I'm pretty sure we either like got rid of them or something like that. I don't know. But anytime, my parents were big antiquers, and we would go to flea markets and stuff, and anytime we went, I would try to find porcelain dolls, because I thought they were cool. And then I got older and started having boyfriends, and boyfriends thought they were creepy, so I didn't keep them very long after college. So, anyway, I thought these were just kind of cool little mysteries. Like I said, the wrecking ball one is really interesting in that it's feasible now to think of as a possibility to be done, but they still don't quite know who did it and why. And why would you even want to steal that? What is it worth? Can you melt it down and turn it in? I don't know. I have no idea. I think that's a cool little mystery. And then the giant one. I love, being the historian in me, I love genealogy and everything. And it's interesting to think about that there could have just been this, 7-foot-something man who we may have never gotten on record. And what if he was, the real freaking Bigfoot? What if that's a Bigfoot skeleton, guys? That'd be cool. No, I don't know. Probably not a Bigfoot skeleton. Though it did say he had a condition that made him grow his feet larger. Feet, hands, and everything larger than average. So, who knows? Could be. But anyway, I think that's where we're going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, please subscribe, share, anything to get the word out there. It really helps me out. On Apple Podcasts, which this is on now, you can leave a review. If you want to leave 5 stars, I very much appreciate it. But yeah, I would love to see you back. Thanks again. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for listening to I'm Already Looking It Up. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to my Patreon at patreon.com/wildforestproductions. Don't forget to check out all the social links below. Thank you!